So I'm Tim Burnett, longtime friend of the family. Charlie was about 3 days old, I think, when I met him. And my wife Raizel and I are honored to be here to support this celebration, this summer solstice evening, remembering the life, the love, the many loves. Look at this, look around. Look around, wow. The many lives that Charlie touched with such grace, or he wouldn't be here.
As Tim said, I'm Raizel, and I am also very honored to be here and so touched by already all of you who have come from far and wide to celebrate Charlie's life. I don't have the long history with Charlie's family that Tim has. I've known Glenn a couple of years, and from the first time I met her, I just felt an instant connection. So again, we're honored to be here and want to support you in what you need this evening.
Let's just acknowledge for a moment where we are, living on these traditional lands of the Lummi and Nooksack peoples, on the edge of this bay that they live in and have lived in for so many thousands of years on these lands. So we're grateful to be here. And we're grateful to be together. Each of us brings all of ourself here, brings our spiritual beliefs and our way of coping. And we do hope that this evening will have lots of room for everybody to feel exactly what you need to feel to take care of yourself, to feel this gathering, to feel your connection and your history and your love for Charlie. Maybe I'll just invite us just to take a moment, if you want to close your eyes you could, or whatever you like, and just take a breath, and we're breathing together with Charlie. And we're blessed many of Charlie's friends are sharing this evening.
On behalf of Charlie's family, I want to thank you again. People have come from far and near to share with us this evening. People coming from as far as New York, Toronto, Maryland, California, Montana, Oregon, Texas, and all over Washington. And of course, there were those who wanted to be here but couldn't. We know they're with us in spirit. May this be a time for you, a space in which you feel safe, just as you are. It's a different kind of grief when a young person dies. There's something about it that just feels wrong, out of order, sort of unthinkable. We grieve the missing of Charlie now, as well as grieving the future, the unlived life that Charlie won't live, the dreams and hopes of what he would become, the life of what he would have created. And the experience and the adventures we would have shared with him in the years to come. May you allow your emotions to be like the water surrounding us, ebbing and flowing. Maybe tears come in waves of heartbreak, of gratitude, maybe laughter of sadness as we together find a bit of light and hope and begin healing our hearts. Even if just a little bit today. May we offer compassion and care to ourselves as well as to one another by accepting all that arises this evening. care for yourself, please feel free to do what you need to do. Maybe get up and stretch, walk around outside, take a breather, get a drink of water, whatever you need to do this evening to be as comfortable as you can. We encourage you to allow and to accept the emotions that arise in you and others without trying to fix them or change them. As we share in the joy of remembering Charlie's love alongside of the pain of losing him way too soon. I want to invite Charlie's dad, Greg Preenan, to share, please.
I think of time as narrow, and each of us are riding an arrow right at its tip. Someday, our arrows will fall in the sky. Our time will be over, our flight's done, and our time will live on only as memories of the people we leave behind, This is the way it is with Charlie, these memories. This evening we are here to remember a child, a brother, a grandchild, a nephew, a cousin, a young man who some of us have known since birth, who we helped raise, or maybe Charlie was a good friend or a classmate or a teammate, maybe a colleague. Those of us who knew him best loved Charlie. Pretty much everyone in his life Charlie touched. He was special, I think. Of course I did. Which makes the circumstances of his death so sad, so painful. But the reality is this. Charlie drank and he drove, and his driving caused the death of another human being. That man's name is Hassan Ali. He was 43 years old. Charlie made the biggest mistake in his life. He took Mr. Ali's life with his. But two things can be true, and these two things are true. Charlie took Hassan Ali's life, and he was a warm, funny, smart, sensitive, and kind young man. A smart guy once wrote this: "My principal objection to life, I think, is this. It is too easy when alive to make perfectly horrible mistakes." Amen to that. That's Kurt Vonnegut. Here are some of my memories of Charlie. He was born on March 29, 1999 at St. Joe's. That's the local hospital. It snowed that day. He was a freakishly strong kid right from the get-go. His nose was slightly scrunched. I noticed that right away. And all of you who know him, he remained that way his entire life. There's a Zen concept, wabi-sabi. It has to do with finding beauty in the imperfect, taking pleasure in things that bear the mark of impermanence. For me, that was Charlie's nose. Charlie's nose was wabi-sabi. Charlie's first teacher was Nicole Carlson. Nicole's a month older than Charlie. And Glenn and Chris Carlson worked together at Western. When they went back to work, one of them would watch both kids across the days. So Nicole and Charlie were together for 40 hours a week or so for a couple of years. Nicole, a month older, did everything first. The most frustrating weeks of Charlie's life were those between when Nicole walked and when he took his first step. Nicole walked early, and so Charlie did too. Charlie went to Loving Space for preschool and kindergarten. By far the most enjoyable educational experience of his life. Maybe the most educational. He rode an alligator, he got paint and dirt everywhere, and he came home with a smile on his face every day. Thank you, Abby and Sherry, and all the great folks at Loving Space. Some of Charlie's uncles and aunts, whose kids attended, shall we say, more conventional preschools, took to calling it Crunchy Space after reading a reminder from the teachers that the kids had to wear underwear to school. On hot days. Loving Space was great. Charlie cried the day he graduated from Carl Clevenger, the grade school here. Being the product of the Catholic boys' schools himself, I wondered aloud if he would be teased or beat up by his classmates. Glenn told me not to be ridiculous, but these were sweet kids. She was right. What I remember most about Charlie at middle school was orchestra. Charlie played the violin. Neil Loretta. He did that because it was as portable as and cheaper than a violin. He never practiced. He couldn't play a lick. He faked it through the final concert, clearly out of sync with everyone else. I think he held the bow away from the strings. You got a B. I was like, running this. He told me he made the teacher laugh. I understand. Charlie began skiing when he was young, up at Baker. Lessons first, and then the race team. My favorite memories were the rides up the mountains in the morning. Mountain, didn't like that. Charlie told me he loved the rides up the mountain early in the season when it was dark and the car was warm and dawn would break somewhere along the drive. He never really articulated exactly why I loved it, but I felt it too. We'd listen to Harry Potter and talk a little, and then once the road got twisted, Joey would throw up. We'd arrive, park right next to the lodge, meet the gang, and get some potato joints. The gang, the Jenkinses, the Joneses, the Sitkins, and us. We'd split up for skiing with the adults going one way and the kids the other, but we'd meet for lunch. Watching Charlie clomp into the lodge for lunch, especially on a cold, snowy day, which there were many. His face red, often caked in snow, smiling, concerned with nothing other than what was up for lunch. Just happy, filled me with joy. Too many ski stories, I really wouldn't even know where to start. Charlie loved unfrozen water too. Couldn't swim with the dam. But he grew up on beaches and on his grandpa's boat. Charlie's fondness for salt water and beaches is why we chose this venue. Because it was from here, right down there, that this is a departure point for Charlie's earliest saltwater exploration. Anyway, you'd leave from right down there. Mom and Grandpa were great hosts. Great with the boys. It was a fantastic house. We could go as often as we could manage. We usually took the foot ferry. After stops in Eliza, Sinclair, Orcas, Lakely, Lopez, and once in a while Shaw, seemingly after a couple of days, we'd arrive at Friday Harbor, be West Nashville home in California. I've never seen a kid lose himself on a beach, bucket, and a shovel the way Charlie could. Any saltwater beach had that effect, whether it was San Juan or Whitby, or my parents had a house. Or Rockaway, Oregon, where we would gather each year with 30 or so of our family and Lewis family too. Crabs, worms, clams, mussels, barnacles, seaweed, seals, whales, fish, birds, mud, rock, driftwood, sand, loved it all. We'd explore and collect, build castles and dams, boogie board, skateboard, hang out with Joey, his cousins, friends, no one at all. For hours and hours. If he was on the beach, he was at home, happy. Here's a quote that reminds me of Charlie. I know you'd like it too. It's easy to remember when we were small and lay on our stomachs beside the tide pool, and our minds and eyes went so deep into it that size and identity were lost. And the creeping hermit crab was our size, and the tiny octopus a monster. And the waving algae covered us and hid under a rock at the bottom. We hid under the rock at the bottom and leapt out at a fish. It's very possible that we, and even those who probe space with equation, simply extend this wonder. That's Steinbeck. It's the way Charlie felt about the beach. On Whidbey, when the tide was really low, Charlie would wade through the eelgrass, slowly, carefully, feeling the unseen bottom with his feet. It was good crabbing, and this was his favorite method. And he'd feel a crab, pin it with his foot, reach down, grab it, voila. Crab pin. Charlie liked soccer. For a while, he loved soccer. At first, he mostly liked running around and hanging out with his buddies. One day we were talking about soccer and you mentioned about a particular kid who wasn't particularly athletic, was a remarkably good player, and he wondered why. I said that kid probably practiced. Charlie said that he went to practice too. I explained that some people practice apart from, in addition to going to practice. Charlie was flabbergasted. And you could see a light going in his head. The next day, the garage was cleared. We spent an hour or so dribbling and passing against a wall. We found some drills he could do, he did those. He got some coaching from one of his ski team coaches who had played college soccer. And off he went. 1 hour became 2 or 3, eventually 8 hours of practice later. It was pretty good. We went from C team to B team to A team. He was first team all conference his senior year in high school. But I think he still liked running around and hanging out with his buddies the best. He was on a number of teams over the years, some better than others. I remember a 10-0 drubbing down in Kent. I remember Seahelm taking the all-conquering Archbishop Murphy team, but the team I remember best, the team that was the most fun to watch and talk about with Charlie, was Shown FC. I still have no idea who or what Shown is. Charlie went from Pulsion Middle School to Seahelm High School. And for those of you who are from around here, Culture kids get split. Half of them go to Seahelm, the other half go to Bellingham High School. So when Charlie went to high school, he didn't know all that many people. He really was not happy that first day after school. He said he just stood against a wall all day. But the second day at lunch, Sam McNamee invited him to join he and his friends, kids that had all gotten very in the middle school where everyone just, and this group more or less adopted him. This group adopted Charlie, and it was those kids and some other friends of mine in high school, and a few that he brought along from Culture, that remained his best friends for the rest of his life. The first time I met these guys, these high school friends, was at Birch Bay State Park. It was Wyatt Ruby's birthday, and Wyatt's folks, who must be saints, took a whole crew camping. Charlie had soccer practice and was late to the party. I drove him out and hung out for a bit. These kids were bright, goofy, and a little irreverent. I liked them immediately. I was really happy for Charlie. So it's from this high school group that Shone FC came into being. We played indoors at the Sportsplex. Struck me more as performance art. Well, maybe not art. And soccer. Some of the players were quite good. Some appeared dead when they kicked the ball. Goalies wore oven mitts. Nobody had the right shoes. Didn't matter. This wasn't the point. I don't know what the point was. But it was entertaining for everyone in the opposing team who probably figured they were there to play a soccer game. Charlie was playing with his friends, which, as I suggested, was always what mattered most to him. The only team Charlie didn't really enjoy was the year he played for Whatcom Community College. The team was quite talented. At that level, it was pretty serious. Competition outweighed camaraderie. Most of these guys were at community college trying to get their grades up so they could play at a four-year school. Charlie wasn't a good fit. He wasn't really a jock. He wasn't one of the better players. At the end of that year, he decided to hang up his boots at least competitively. Surprisingly, though, he got good grades. Before community college, Charlie was not what one would call a stellar student. He'd end up with okay grades, but getting there required significant parental intervention after the midterm. So the situation was inevitably dire. After community college, he went to Western Washington University at the Hill. He found out that he could go to either Western or University of Washington as a Washington Community College graduate with good grades without taking the SATs, which was a major bonus for him. His grades were excellent, so he applied to both, got into both. He wasn't quite ready for the big city, just at Western. But before he did that, he took a year off. First, along with a handful of his friends, he volunteered with an agency doing hurricane relief work on St. Thomas. You might detect an ulterior motive here. I gather he had quite a bit of fun, met some interesting characters, and actually did a bunch of work during the school. He loved the work. When he got home, he did a bunch of work around my house without being asked, just because he was in the habit, I guess. I have it wore off quite quickly. After the Virgin Islands, Charlie hopped on a plane and spent 4 months traveling around Europe and North Africa by himself, crashing with friends, both old and new, and friends of the family, with whom his stays were, shall we say, extended. Those friends of the family commented, but they didn't seem to mind. Just being 19 or 20 and on his own in a strange land far from home was obviously exhilarating. He told me a load of stories. I cracked up as he recounted splitting his only pair of pants in Paris So if you saw a guy walking down the Champs-Elysees wearing a jacket and his pants in 2019, the last stop on Charlie's European vacation was London, where he stayed with a friend he met in the Virgin Islands. Charlie's friend lived in Croydon, and his job was driving a van around southeast London delivering marijuana. The legality of this enterprise remains an open question. Anyway, Charlie went along with his friend as he made his rounds and met an assortment of southeast London characters, which really delighted him. While Charlie attended Western, he also worked 20 hours a week at the Dickinson's beverage warehouse. Charlie had a lot of winning qualities, but putting together pallets of drinks and making sure they got where they needed to go wasn't something that fit comfortably into his wheelhouse. I believe mistakes were made. But again, he did very well at school. On the topic of jobs for which Charlie was ill-suited, back in high school he worked at WECU, which is the local credit union. His job was to review checks and make sure that the written amount corresponded with the numbers. I really can't think of a worse person match. Drove me crazy. It didn't last long. He quit for soccer. About a year ago, my account was hacked. And I went into WeQ to straighten things out. The banker who helped me had been Charlie's boss during the checking deal. She asked me if I was related. I told her I was. She loved Charlie. They all loved Charlie. She did not compliment his work performance. After college, Charlie worked for some hippie tilers, 7 times. He liked it. He referred to it as the tile industry. Charlie wasn't having much luck getting a real job, but it was picked up when I suggested that he apply for a few. To his astonishment, there was this company, Aerotech, that interviewed him repeatedly, seemingly forever, and eventually offered him a job recruiting from the aerospace industry. Aerotech was in Federal Way, and Charlie's aunt, Kathy, and Uncle Matt Murphy lived in Seattle, so instead of getting an apartment, he moved in with them. Of course he did. 6 months later, I suggested that he might want to find a place of his own. He did so, though reluctantly. He really loved living with Kathy and Matt. He was sad to go. I think they were a bit sad to see him go too. But he rented a nice place a couple of blocks from Wright Park in Tacoma. That first real job proved stressful at first. Apparently the work environment was pretty competitive and some poor performers were getting fired. Charlie thought that he might be next. I told him that if he was fired and his dream of being a corporate drone was shattered, he could always re-engage with the tile industry. Unlike me, Charlie was not a fashion plate. He simply didn't give a care for the most part. He got a suit before he died, and he seemed to take pleasure in wearing it. But his go-to work attire was a quarter zip. I didn't really even know what a quarter zip was. They're a thing. He joked that quarter zips were the mandatory attire for men in the recruiting days. And that the prize for the highest producer was the golden quarter zip. He never got that golden quarter zip. And he was moving up and feeling good about his job and himself. Charlie really liked the people who worked with at Aerotech. One Saturday afternoon, he texted me telling me that he was crafting with the people on his team. I don't think of crafting when I think of Charlie. But he was clearly having fun. It must have been around Father's Day. He sent me a photo of a piece of leather into which he inartfully punched the word dad. It looked like he'd done it on his face. That was very Charlie. The last time I saw Charlie before the events that bring us here today was in early October at his cousin Aaron's wedding. It was a gorgeous evening on the south end of Magnolia Bluff in Seattle. The sun had set. The sand and the city were sparkling. Charlie was sitting outside at the table with his cousins, wearing his new suit, talking and laughing. It seemed to be the best of times for him. I stood back and watched them for a while. And I said my goodbyes. And I walked in the hill. Earlier that afternoon was the wedding mass, at which Charlie extemporaneously made his first communion. There's video. I'm sure we'll see it at some point. Charlie was not a Catholic, practicing or otherwise. But pretty much everyone else on my side of the family is a Catholic, hence the wedding mass. I'm pretty sure that his Uncle Duff put him up to getting in line for communion. In the video, Charlie has what I call a mischievous grin. I might call it another kind of grin, maybe less polite kind of one. Stick around and enjoy for yourself. Charlie was not religious. But when he was young, he attended a summer camp at the downtown Baptist church, which, by the way, does a great job of feeding Bellingham's homeless population. We've been doing it ever since I came to town. I'm not aware of any other institution that's put forth the same. Anyway, we refer to this camp as Discount Bible Camp. It was cheap. Charlie and Joey went out with the Carlson and King kids. First time I met him, he was probably 8 or 9. We went to the camp. We had a really good time. As the following summer approached, Charlie asked Glenn if he was going to the Bible camp again. She told him quite truthfully that she wasn't sure that his dad had some misgivings about the conservative religious nature of the camp. She probably used slightly different language. Charlie told his mom that she should tell his dad not to worry, that he didn't believe in any of that God stuff. So the little atheist went back to Bible camp. And at the end of that session, we asked her to be a counselor. I said, sure. So the next year he was Counselor Charlie. Years later, I was at a dinner that included some people I hadn't met. I was seated next to one such woman, and we were making polite conversation. What do you do for work? That sort of thing. The woman told me that she worked at the Downtown Baptist Church. I told her my kids went to camp at that church. She said she ran that program and asked my kids' names. I told her. She absolutely lit up. Boredom vanished instantly. She said, oh my gosh, Charlie was amazing with the kids. He was the best youth counselor we've ever had. I love Charlie. She meant it. That for me is the essence of Charlie. Dogma was not a strong suit. He was empathetic, emotionally intelligent, kind, because that's the way he was wired. And people responded. On an intellectual level, Charlie struggled with life's meaning and purpose. We talked about these things. We talked about philosophy and religion. We talked about nihilism. We talked about existentialism, absurdism, humanism. We talked about Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, the Jains, the Zoroastrians. We talked about the beauty of the world and the cruelty. Our discussions were born of curiosity rather than knowledge. Consulted Wikipedia as necessary. Many questions, very few answers. Of course, more often we talked about Lionel Messi or To Pimp a Butterfly or Confederacy of Fences or the intricacies of the latest South Park story arc. Or whether we ought to get pizza, or most often, what Charlie and his friends wrote. It was easy, funny, and fun to be with. I miss him. I think about him 100 times a day. When I do my heart, it doesn't come away. And I wish, more than anything, that Charlie was still in the world. When Mr. Ali was living his life, but those arrows had flown and fallen, but then not from the sky. And we are left with our memories and our broken hearts. And we have our lives to lead. The tip of our arrows. And that's what it is. Thank you.
And we were getting ready to do this, meeting with Glenn and Greg. And through the whole process, as soon as Glenn got back from Tacoma, the main thing that Glenn talked to us about was Charlie's friends. What they'd done lately, we saw the audiobook of Harry Potter, or heard it. And it's amazing to me to see how true this is. Charlie was blessed and created and lived into friendship and connection. So clear. How he did it. People gathered around him and he enjoyed being with people. So some of his friends who are also really courageous people are going to come up and share as best they can. And there'll be open opportunities beyond this ceremony space to have an open mic a little bit later too. And we'll just share with each other informally at tables and by the food and out overlooking the water. And before they share, we're blessed with another song from Lindsay, Danielle, and Christopher.
Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when
when you're not strong. I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on.
How are we doing? Holding it together? Yeah. You don't know me, I'm Wyatt. I had the pleasure of being Charlie's friend for the last 10 years. Charlie was a special dude. I forgot my tissues. Thank you. Charlie was a special dude. He was full of integrity, open-mindedness, sincerity, care for others, love. We'll break there. He had an astute, mature sense of what mattered, which were the people he loved, and what didn't. Fashion and hygiene. Sorry, Charlie. He was a good friend and a kind man. He had a big laugh, a huge smile, a wickedly fast and hilarious sense of humor. He made everyone feel loved. He made everyone feel welcome. He loved inside jokes. He was a deep thinker and struggled with big questions about how. You do my best Charlie impression here. Nothing has meaning, man. Our brains just create the meaning. And we all believe it's there outside of us. But it's a mental trick, man. Again, sorry, Charlie. Me and other friends joked about how instead of just hanging out and get together, Charlie often ended up in a passionate, deep conversation. When writing this speech, I thought about what Charlie would have wanted. Charlie would not want to dwell on his death, and he would have made sure there were lots of jokes. Part of me wanted to make this the saddest, most depressing speech possible, just to prank him. I talk about how much potential he had, and how all that was gone. I talk about how I felt, feeling his loss. Like an axe swung straight into my heart. Like a rhinoceros. Yes, the rhinoceros. Laying all its weight right there on my chest. Like a betrayal. He left before he should have. He didn't say goodbye. He showed us how beautiful and fun it could be to exist around his bright, warm ball of love. He yanked it all away. But instead of doing that, let's let Charlie have his way. All right. One of my favorite memories of Charlie is of him running at a full sprint into a fence. It's beautiful. We had the bright, illegal idea to steal traffic cones and block off roads in the middle of the night. Watching from the bushes as cars decided to push through them or go around and find another way. You'd be surprised how many people blindly trust traffic cones set up with no context in the middle of the night. After successful attempts on Rotor, the guy Meridian and Railroad, we thought we'd try out Lakeway. Charlie was responsible for the furthest cones, but we waited for a gap, but as he sprinted out there, a car pulled up. Must have pulled in one of the side streets.
I was already hidden, as were most friends. But Charlie was the only one in plain sight. So he sprinted away. All out as this lady yelled at us. Charlie couldn't see the chain link fence in the dark. And so at probably 14 miles an hour, 7 or 8 years ago, it was Thomas Charles Greenan who hit the fence, bounced off it, 180, spun around, and continued sprinting to safety behind 7-Eleven. I always knew Charlie was a resilient guy, but I'll never forget that feat of athleticism and toughness. Another time, Sam, Charlie, and I were on a road trip to Yellowstone. Sam and I kept messing with Charlie the whole time by saying we saw a good line to climb up a ridiculously steep cliff face. Charlie knew we had no idea what we were talking about, so after 3 days of us saying, "Oh, you see that good line over there?" Charlie snapped. He called our bluff, pulled the car over, and walked directly into the wilderness. He was sick of being the safety guy in the group, so to make us actually acknowledge we were being idiots, he flipped the tables on us. And I eventually had to say that we, in fact, had no idea what we were doing. Charlie was proud. His tactic had worked. There were just so many jokes over the years that he amplified and made. Showed FC, spiky eyebrows, his deviated septum, loving anecdotes, not respecting data, Big Bird, Booby. We tried to give him the nickname Booby, it didn't work. Most were very dumb, as you can tell. Unexpected death is uniquely terrible. There's pain, so much pain, and there are questions. How could someone so alive just vanish? How are they gone when they still exist so vividly in my mind? Even writing this now, or reading it, I guess. Forgot to fix that. Even reading this now feels surreal because I can imagine him walking through any of these doors, sitting at his table. Huge smile on his face. A few lessons I've learned from this. Life is not guaranteed. We could all die at any moment. I could die, you could die. All your loved ones could die. I know it's morbid, but it's just a sad, harsher than harsh truth that deserves repeating. Number 2, tell people you love them while you can. I know it's cliche. It's true. And tell them why you love them. Last year, I don't know why, but luckily enough, I had the conversation with Charlie about how special he was. I told him how he made people feel special. I told him how I looked up to him. And looking back now, I'm really glad that I said that. Number 3, I've learned how horrible drunk driving is. It's so easy to not do, but people do it anyway. Get an Uber, have a DD, save us the pleasure of doing this BS again. So profound. I know what he was thinking that night. He didn't want to have to come get his car in Seattle again. Stupid Charlie. He wanted to wake up in his own bed. He probably thought to himself, am I fine to drive? If you have to ask yourself if you're fine to drive, the answer is no. Not a break. Call a friend, call a brother, call a sister, call anybody, call me. Wake them up. I think people would float across the country to take him home that night. Save us all from having to do this again. I should be an old man standing up here today. Charlie should have died wrinkly and gray from a sore back, or a strained groin, or a deviated septum, or some other Charlie malady. I should be spending this beautiful Friday evening with him and all of his buddies, frothing at Cornwall and golfing at Raspberry, playing basketball at Small Capri, absolutely abusing the bottomless fry option at Red Robin, watching Harry Potter, mocking everyone and everything, with this voice down here, going on trips. Charlie, you should be getting married. You should be a text away. You should be coming on our boys' trip tomorrow. And every year for decades, you should be falling in love. You should be getting married. You should be having kids. Charlie, if you're out there listening somewhere, I miss you. I'll always hold you dear. And you can rest easy knowing I am taking your place as the hardest to take down wrestling in the friend group. Anyway, that's it. Sleep well, my brother. Thank you.
Jeremy?
Hi everyone, thanks for coming. My name is Jaren. There are about 50 versions of this speech that I wrote and tore up, but really I just wanted to spend this time to share some bits about Charlie that I felt were under-advertised and share some bits about my friendship with him as we grew up together that I really miss. To start, Charlie was an absolute genius, and I mean that in the literal sense too. Some of you may not know that Charlie was forced to take an IQ test in college, and when he found out his score, he treated it like a national trade secret. Like he didn't want to tell anyone or let anyone know because he was so humble, he didn't want anyone else to see him differently. In reality, I think anyone that's had a conversation with him for more than 5 minutes could easily tell the man was gifted. And on that note, another thing that made Charlie so special was how curious he was about pretty much everything. Look no further than Charlie's music tastes or what he watched. I mean, Charlie loved everything from drill rappers rapping about O-Block, to watching The Sopranos, to watching videos on quantum mechanics and the double slit experiment, to watching Joe Rogan interview guests about aliens. His breadth was truly one of one. In this same vein, Charlie was also interested in talking to pretty much everybody and anybody. And the more different the background and the story, the more interested Charlie was. He was such a good listener, he was often able to listen to your story or your point and then repeat it back to you or someone else just more clear and better. To me, all this goes to show how much Charlie actually loved life. I mean, he wanted to learn everything about it from every angle and every aspect. Charlie also had a special way of making people feel at ease. For me personally, I've had this bad habit growing up of Googling every little ailment, and as Charlie would put it, I am, or I was, a hypochondriac. More than once, Charlie has caught me Googling some symptom, whether it was a headache or something else silly, and he would immediately burst out laughing in his classic laugh, and let me know I definitely had cancer. Just picturing his laugh right now is making me start to laugh. But it would just take me out of my own head and we could laugh about it together. In fact, a good 50% of our humor was finding and laughing at things that we found ridiculous, whether it was something that we both saw, or the subject was oftentimes us or a cringy story from our past. In fact, without fail, a cringy story from our past would always get a good laugh. My friendship with Chuck was more than just laughing about things and watching videos about aliens, though. Charlie played a big role in how I view the world today. As many of you often know, Charlie loved to end the night with his friends, just sitting outside and having a big, long conversation. And for us, a lot of these conversations were of the existential type and around the meaning of life. As corny as that sounds, this was something that we often thought about back in high school, and where we mostly ended up was there was no grand scheme or design to life. But instead, life was meant to be lived by spending time with loved ones and friends and just enjoying each other's company. Another side of Charlie was that he was always there for me in the big moments of my life. When I was sick a couple years ago with long COVID and really at the worst point of my life, Charlie visited me a couple times. And we would just hang out or grab some pho or grab some food. And Charlie, I'm sure, didn't think twice about this, but for me, it made the world of difference. On the flip side, a few celebrations I've had, Charlie was always there to support as well. When I graduated from UW, he was one of the 3 friends that came down to celebrate. And last year, he was the only friend that came to eat Korean barbecue with me. Really what I'm trying to say is that Charlie was everything and more that I could ask for from a friend, and reality transcended friendship and felt more like a brother than anything else. I couldn't find a good way to fit this in earlier, but I also wanted to mention that Charlie loved Miyazaki movies, and his favorite was Nausicaa Valley of the Wind. But anyways, like I mentioned before, Charlie loved when people got together, and so with all his loved ones here today, the spiritual side of me hopes that he's here among us. And so Charlie, this is directly to you. I want to tell you that I'm so sorry, and I feel that I let you down, and I'll carry that with me for the rest of my life. I want to say that I miss you so much, brother, and I love you, and thank you for being in my life and being my friend. You never know, maybe in some parallel universe, you and I are in that boat in the sun, or in Japan or Korea eating sushi and fried chicken with our friends, having the time of our lives. Thank you for being in my life, and lastly, I just want to thank God for allowing me to meet such a special soul. Thank you.
Ava?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today, and thank you so much, Lynn and Joey and Greg, for having us. It's really difficult to be here, I think, for everyone, but very necessary to gather and honor Charlie's memory. So, for those I haven't met yet, my name is Ava. I'm one of Charlie's friends. We met in. Wait, sorry. Oh, okay, sorry. This is hard. While we each have like our own special connection with him, I just want to kind of speak to my own perspective as one of his female friends. So I first met Charlie in freshman year of high school through mutual friends, and we were in the same friend group for years. But then in 2018, we spent a month together volunteering, and Brady and Denton were there too. And that's what this photo is from. And that's when our friendship really became deeper and more like personal between the two of us. We managed to get assigned to the same project while we were there, and we spent the first 2 weeks just 8 hours a day scraping black mold from the walls. But we never complained, and we managed to have fun with it. There was this one night in St. Thomas where we were at McDonald's, and I was mid-bite of a McChicken, and Charlie did something that made me laugh so hard that I choked, like fully airway blocked, and I was motioning for him to give me the Heimlich, but he just thought it was so funny that I was choking, and I was so mad at him, but I couldn't stop laughing too. And then a couple years later, some of the girls and I were living down the street from Charlie and some of the guys at their Knox Street house. And a couple of nights in the week, we would do mega bed, which is just where we would lay blankets down on the floor, and we'd all line up like sardines and fall asleep that way. And once or twice, I woke up to Charlie's like tighty-whitey butt in my face, which I did not appreciate. And then in 2022, actually, an intramural sportsplex soccer team that, Greg, you might not know about. However, our name were the Green Gregs and Pam, named after you, and also after Pam Thompson. We had our rookie and also final season where a groin was pulled every quarter or half. And Charlie was not in the best. Like, he was not in the shape he was during high school at this time, but he was still our only chance at, like, winning a game. I think we won one or two. I have so many incredible memories with Charlie. We went on so many camping trips, and we had lots of movie nights and road trips and birthday festivities. But my favorite were the times when just him and I would talk about anything and everything for hours on end. Charlie was he was the most kind-hearted and non-judgmental person I've ever met. And he had a very unique ability to connect with people in a way I've never witnessed before, and I don't think I will ever witness again. He always made me feel like I could tell him anything. And to this day, there are things that I told him that I've never told anyone else. He always listened to me and heard me out when I needed him. And he always made me a priority in his life and told me that he loved me. Pretty much every time I saw him, it almost got annoying at times. Charlie could make friends and bond with people no matter where he was in the world. And he made the people around him feel very special. And through losing him and hearing your speeches and speaking with many of you, I realized that it was Charlie that was special. And his loss and his absence is very painful, but I'm incredibly grateful for every moment I was lucky enough to share with him in his life. Thank you so much.
Jose.
I'm so nervous. Good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Jose. Charlie wasn't one to talk about himself much. He always focused his conversations on asking questions and listening to others. So here's a few more things that you might not know about Charlie. Charlie was born on the 88th day of the year, on March 29, exactly at 3:29 a.m. It was immediately clear to all the family that baby Charlie had inherited the iconic green eyebrows. It took him many years to learn how to manscape those brows. Charlie was named after his father and his grandfather, with the first name Thomas, and they all went by the middle name. When I first met Charlie in high school, in our Spanish class, I wasn't there to learn Spanish, as I was already fluent. I was there to learn English. It doesn't really make sense why I was in that class, but it was one of the best things that could have happened to me. Not only I was able to meet Charlie, but I also got to meet a lot of you guys in the crowd. When we first met, my English wasn't as good as it is today, but it didn't seem like an obstacle for him. For many years, we communicated. Excuse me. Yeah, for many years we communicated that we would translate. We used to have to learn about each other's life, and we slowly became somewhat like brothers. My life would have been different if I would have never met Charlie in high school. We experienced so much throughout life. Sorry. We experienced so much throughout our life together, which is left me with great memories I treasure. From sneaking out of school to go to Logan's house to do bonfires at Lucas Beach to play football and basketball with our friends. It was always a blast spending time with our friends. That was one of the things he loved the most. Sometimes he even brought me over to do yard work at his mom's in grandma's house. He knew I was the perfect candidate for the job. No matter what we did together, whether it was going out with friends, staying home, watching movies, doing yard work, it was always a good time with him. There's one great memory that we have together that I would like to share with everyone here today. When I was still learning English back in high school, I asked Charlie what was the best way to learn English was, and he advised me to watch movies with subtitles. So I handed him my phone to add movies to my watch list. Naturally, he was curious to know what movies I've been watching and started to reading my list. To my own surprise, all the English movies I had been watching was the third movie in the series or a random movie with the number 3 in it. All the movies have the number 3 somewhere in the title, and for some reason, and when we realized, Charlie let out the loudest laughter I ever heard from him. It was so loud and full of joy that I could still hear it like it was yesterday. When thinking back to that memory, this is one of the memories that had Charlie laughing every time when it was brought up. He thought it was the funniest thing ever. Since then, I knew Charlie was the funniest and most caring guy ever. You can always talk to this man about anything. He always had an answer. Maybe not the right answer, but he had one. One superpower this man had was his ability to make anyone feel important and good about himself. And that's what he did for me and many of you guys. It's because we know that he was someone you could trust and lean on when needed. For instance, there was a time I got stuck at the Canadian border because I didn't have the proper documents to cross at a time. The first person I decided to call was Charlie. He picked up almost immediately. I told him I was in a bad situation, and he immediately asked me if I was okay. I explained him the story. This moment was so memorable and made me love this guy even more because he dropped everything that he was doing and came to pick me up in no time. We laughed about it on the way back to Bellingham. He was a loving guy who cared deeply for his friends and continued to show it every day. I'm so grateful I was able to be part of his life. He's someone who is loved by many, as he was incredibly funny and could make anyone laugh. He was also a genuinely good person with good morals. From the moment you meet him, he was never trying to be anyone but himself because he didn't need to be. He knew being himself was more than enough and never cared what anyone else thought about him. I really admire the fact that he never compromised to do anything or anyone and did everything his own way, the way he felt it. I'm going to miss him a lot, but his legacy will live on through me and through all of us. I'm going to miss you, brother. I love you. I'll cherish you in my heart and my memories forever. God bless you and everything you today. Thank you.
Wow, what incredible friends. What incredible friendships Charlie created. Logan?
Hi everyone. My name's Logan. For those who don't know me, Charlie was one of my very good friends who I also met in the 10th grade in the same Spanish class that Zay just mentioned. As far as my memory goes, there were two distinct phases of my relationship with Charlie. The first was before we knew each other, and the second was when we were among each other's closest friends. I have no recollection of anything in between, presumably because the transition between those two periods was so brief. For reasons I'll discuss shortly, Charlie was talented at friendship in a way that I've never quite encountered before. I learned a great deal from Charlie, and that is what I wish to share with you today. What follows is a short collection of the things that Charlie's taught me. In the face of hardship, especially those so far out of our control, I believe that we all have a choice. And that choice is to suffer with or without purpose. I challenge all of you, myself included, to avoid the nihilistic pitfall of allowing tragedy to subtract meaning from your life, and instead to deliberately create meaning from your suffering. And it is in this spirit that I'd like to share with you the meaning that I've created from this tragedy. Lesson 1. Cut the small talk. I remember when Charlie and I were attending college in different cities. Every couple months or so, we'd speak on the phone, and we'd usually end up speaking for the better part of the day. The thing about these conversations, though, was that they'd run about as deep as our minds could take us. We'd cover the usual topics, such as this and that has happened since we last spoke. But where we'd find ourselves lost in conversation was about how these experiences were informing our respective life philosophies. No thought was too personal, vulnerable, or embarrassing to be put under a microscope and examined, which ultimately caused these interactions to become therapeutic. The remarkable piece was that these conversations were so personal and so personal, they left a residual effect of mental ease, often lasting days afterwards. I found most people, if they're lucky, might have a handful of friends they consider close. I, for example, could count mine on one hand. Charlie, without exaggeration, had somewhere between 10 and 15, but probably more than that. I've yet to meet another person who can truly claim that. Think about the number of heart-to-hearts, origin stories, childhood traumas, and the amount of trust gained for his number to be that large. This was, at its heart, who Charlie was and what he loved to do. Especially if you didn't know him as well, please dwell on that, because as a standalone fact, it is probably one of the most telling things about who he was. Lesson 2. Friendship should be positive sum. From the perspective of a very close friend, it appeared he was genuinely exempt from the blemish of human nature, which can condemn us to insert ego, insecurity, or otherwise personal baggage between us and our friends. Now, that is not to say Charlie was without flaws, because none of us are, but on this point specifically, about not allowing personal feelings to form obstacles between friends, his friendship with me was near a flawless performance. He, in the purest sense, believed that my wins were his wins, and conversely, that my losses were his losses. But differently, he didn't feel as if the success of others diminished his own, or that the failure of others emphasized his success. This made him one of the best people to go to with good news, and an even better person to go to with bad news. At risk of stating the obvious, this is much easier said than done. I have the sense that we all may like to believe that we are this kind of friend. But if we're honest with ourselves, I don't think it would take too long to remember a time we wish we acted differently. If you ask yourself, out of the friends you consider close, which of them are you compelled to share good news with first? If there truly isn't any kind of order that comes to mind, congratulations. Your group is likely approaching friendship in a positive sum manner, like Charlie did so well. My hunch, however, is that most of us don't have to think too hard to recall an example of a friend, or probably yourself, reacting to the success of another in a manner less than ideal. I know I'm guilty of this. This is a zero-sum approach to friendship, and if only for that moment, where your ego would like you to believe that the success of another is somehow detracts from your own. I don't think I ever caught Charlie exhibiting this, even once. The truth is, your success is most likely utterly unrelated to the successes or failures of your friends. And phenomenally, Charlie understood this innately and implemented it better as a teenager than I believe most of us might ever be able to achieve as adults. Lesson 3, meaning is created, not found. Perhaps the most defining aspect of my relationship with Charlie was the ongoing, omnipresent, philosophical discussion about the meaning of life. As a person who enjoys these kinds of conversations and has the tendency to seek them out, let me tell you how insane it is that I've spoken on this subject with Charlie for more hours than everyone else in my life combined. Charlie was deeply contemplative about all aspects of life and was extremely intelligent. So when he got his mind around something that he believed to be correct, it was exceptionally difficult to prove him otherwise. Although most of that might have just been stubbornness. In effect, the hours spent in conversation with Charlie provided me with an intensely logical filter through which my budding philosophies of life were put to the test. It's no surprise that this process sped up the maturation of those ideas and ultimately provided me with a sound life philosophy. This is one of the greatest gifts I could have ever received from a friend. I opened this speech encouraging you all to create meaning in your suffering and posited that these lessons were the meaning I created for mine. The same principle can, and in my opinion, should be applied to one's life. I think it's a great misconception to think of the meaning of life as something that is found. This belief carries with it a host of unhelpful implications, the worst of them being that it suggests very little responsibility in the matter. It subtly implies that you could accidentally find it, or that one day it may be magically revealed to you. Personally, I have no desire to gamble my happiness in this way. Instead, I learned from Charlie to view the meaning of life as something you create. This view implies a great personal responsibility and leaves little up to chance. At each fork in the road, it forces you to ask whether any given path might add or subtract meaning from your life. As life goes on, the more times you ask yourself this question, and the more times you choose the additive path, the more meaningful your outcomes will become and the happier you are likely to be. Without Charlie, this view would undeniably be less clear, and I truly think I'd be less happy. It's my hope that by sharing a few of the many lessons I've learned from Charlie, that his best qualities can multiply among us and in effect keep his spirit burning brighter than I could ever hope to achieve on my own. Thank you.
Not much of a public speaker. Alright. Hey, I'm Amarella, or as Charlie called me, Omo, or Bozo. Heard that one a couple times today, so guess you got it from you guys. 235 days ago, my world stopped when Charlie didn't show up for work. Knowing exactly in my heart what had happened. 223 days ago, I got the call that would change my life forever. The call that would leave me crying to my pillow, or playing voice notes and videos just to hear his voice again, and questioning everything about life for the past 7 months. A little backstory. Sat next to Charlie at our first job after college. Pretty quickly I realized he was my soulmate, my twin flame, and the love of my life. Because we worked together and neither of us wanted to quit, we didn't tell anyone that we were spending so much time together outside of work. Probably a big mistake. I spent 22 years of my life searching for someone that made me feel the way that Charlie did, and I'll spend the rest of my years with a hole in my heart waiting until the day that we can be together again. Charlie had a way of making everyone around him feel so special and loved. Charlie was the first person I told everything to. How special is it to have someone that truly cared about the small things that happened in my life, or at least pretended to care while he listened to me yap his ear off about what type of cereal I had for dinner the night before. If you work with Charlie and I, you know that we spent all day every day laughing and definitely got in trouble for it often. We love doing bits and committing to them fully. Humor was definitely what brought us together. If you were friends and family of Charlie and I, you know how deeply we loved each other. We bickered like a married couple about silly things like me wanting him to be more organized and that wearing gray on gray should be a crime. But he persisted. Every day. I sure wish we could have been that someday. Charlie was a soul too pure for this world, a kid too fearless for his own good, a friend whose kindness knew no bounds, a son who could never disappoint, and a brother whose love knew no limits. If there was one word to describe Charlie, it would be loved. I have so many stories of times that proved to be true. Charlie always insisted on working through lunch. He was a workaholic, believe it or not, and really, really wanted to be successful, or to beat me. He never did. I would always argue that he would get less done in the long run if he skipped lunch and had less energy throughout the day. He insisted. One day, I went out to get lunch and got him a meal to bring back because I always had to make sure that he was fed. I got back and realized that Scott had already taken him to lunch. When I brought him his meal, Maddie had also already brought him food. We all looked at each other and laughed. How beautiful is it that every day he had people who loved him so much that we wanted to take care of him. He had never once asked, and he made that clear. From Scott bringing him a bed frame, to B. Howell giving him his extra polos, to the leftovers everyone would bring him every day, you would think he was some sort of homeless child. He was just so loved that we all had a joint mission, that he succeeded and felt taken care of since he moved away from Glenn and Greg and was navigating the world without his parents nearby. You could always count on Charlie to be doing a few things. Listening to the NPR radio, even on a night out, wearing mismatched socks, and cracking jokes at even the worst times. I have so many hilarious memories I could share, but I'll share two that will always make me smile. Charlie was so technologically challenged. He had an iPhone with the home button on it still, with Boost Mobile. It sent green text and it was an iPhone, if that tells you anything. Our coworker Mel had plugged in a USB drive to Charlie's computer that connected to a keyboard she had under her desk. Multiple times a day, she would press buttons on it and it would open random tabs on Charlie's computer. He never once noticed. He just thought it was a glitch and moved on with his life. She would message me and ask me, watch his computer, make sure it pops something up, and it always did. We never had the chance to tell him it was a prank. Another hilarious memory I have of Charlie was the night we went out together. Somehow, at 1 a.m. on a work night, I ended up at a gay bar with him and Adam, as they referred to themselves as the Twin Towers, and talked in Southern accents. Charlie's accents were so hilarious and he never failed to use them at the worst times. We basically had our own language with the accents we would use to talk to each other. We said the same things at the same time constantly. Our souls were so connected. My favorite accent of his was his Boston Marge Simpson accent. It was pretty good. Charlie gave me the courage to be strong and love myself for who I am. He referred to me as his dream girl, not to brag, and was so sweet to me even amidst his own internal battles. He gave me the courage to leave the toxic relationship that I was in just by showing me that there really is a perfect man out there. Him. I remember the day that it hit me that, wow, I can't live without Charlie, and he really is my soulmate. Charlie had such a deep knowledge of the world and was truly so intelligent in every way. He taught me so much about life, and it was so fun to pick his brain about different topics. They say that grief is love, and it's so clear how loved he truly was. It's really hard to compare the loss of our sweet Charlie to any other loss. He really was the best person ever. There will never be anyone like Charlie. I want to deeply thank everyone here, everyone I've gotten to know over the past 7 months, that has created a beautiful community of love and support. So many of you have welcomed me in with open arms and cried, shared silly stories, and been there for me through our most vulnerable moments, especially Glenn. She's the mom that I never had, and her heart is filled with pure love. I love you guys all so much. Charlie, wherever you are, I know he's out there. Can't wait to see you again someday. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for living a life so beautiful that brings us all here today. I'll miss you every minute of every day for the rest of my life. I don't think I'll ever come to terms with the fact that I'll have to remember you for longer than I knew you. I'll love you forever. I hope there's Zelda, cigarettes, and pesto pasta wherever you are out there. Thanks, guys.
Glenn, are you ready to share with us? Okay. Charlie's mom. They say you can tell everything about a person by the friends they keep. Nothing feels truer to me in this moment when I look at your faces, this ocean of blue. Nothing is truer about Charlie. Charlie's Angels, you so bravely stood up here with all your vulnerability, your love, and your emotions. And you have done Charlie so proud. Thank you. I cherish your stories, your words, and your love for him. And it comforts my heart beyond anything. Even in my deepest grief, I'm grateful beyond words for all of your love and support these last 7 months. But not only the last 7 months, all the years you loved and supported Charlie and Joey and our family. There's too many people to thank by name for making this gathering what our hearts needed tonight. Charlie's group of friends, forever known to me as Charlie's Angels, infused this remembrance with pure love. They spent months planning and organizing, creating the slideshow, the music playlist, the website invitation, meeting on Zoom every week. Charlie's friends have been here at the venue since early this morning, doing all the setup and decorating, sound checks, hauling supplies. This is love. I feel Charlie lives through you and your acts of love. And I'm going to embarrass you a little bit and ask you to stand up so we can all give you a little appreciation for all your hard work today and leading up to this. All of you contributed to this gathering in some way. Our local community and friends here made food, supported me daily, and much more. Please receive from the bottom of my heart my never-ending gratitude. For each person here who took leave from work and traveled on planes, drove for hours, your presence means everything. When Charlie came into my world, he fulfilled my biggest dream of becoming a mom, and Joey doubled that. What all parents want more than anything for our children is for them to feel loved and accepted just as they are, and to experience the joy of loving deeply. Standing here now, there is no doubt in my mind that even though Charlie's years were way too short, the 24 years that he lived on Earth were absolutely filled with love. Your big, warm, unconditional, loyal, all-embracing love.
Every year on the summer solstice, I will relive this gathering, picturing us together here in this beautiful place, cherishing the stories you shared. I will allow this feeling of love to wash over me and to hold my broken heart. Grief doesn't get smaller with time. It's our hearts that get bigger, big enough to hold and carry all of our love and memories of Charlie. Eventually, we'll remember him with more love than pain. And today, being together is one step toward that. May the summer solstice forever be a day we remember the love and light of Charlie. Thank you all.
And I want to invite Lisa, Dane, and Colton up. They'll be sharing a poem by John Donahue. Are you here? Okay. The poem is called On the Death of a Beloved.
She did a really, oh, sorry, I'm Lisa.
I'm Dane, everyone.
She did a really great job of introducing the poem, but we just thought it was the perfect poem for Charlie. And just maybe in expressing the overwhelming emotions we may be feeling. So, this is On the Death of the Beloved by John O'Donoghue. Our beloved Charlie, though we need to weep your loss, you dwell in that safe place in our hearts, where no storm or night or pain can reach you. Your love was like the dawn, brightening ever our lives, awakening beneath the dark. A further adventure of color, the sound of your voice found for us a new music that brightened everything.
Whenever you unfolded your gaze, quickened in the joy of its beating, you placed smiles like flowers on the altar of the heart. Your mind always sparkled with wonder at things. Though your days here were brief, your spirit was live, awake, complete. We looked towards each other, no longer from the old distance of our names. Now you dwell inside the rhythm of breath, as close to us as we are to ourselves. Though we cannot see you with outward eyes, we know your soul's gaze is upon your face, smiling back at us from within everything to which we bring our best refinement.
Let us not look for you only in memory, or we would grow lonely without you. You would want us to find you in presence, beside us when beauty brightens, when kindness glows, and music echoes eternal tones. When orchids bright the earth, darkest winter has turned to spring. May this dark grief flower with hope, and every heart that loved you, may you continue to inspire us.
To enter each day with a generous heart, to serve the call of courage and love, until we see your beautiful face again, in that land where there is no more separation, where all tears will be wiped from our mind, and where we will never lose you again.
So we're just about the close of this formal part, but now we really need a moment, don't we? Just invite you to feel this feeling of your body in this chair, in this space, the warmth of your neighbors, the love that's in the room, and the simple breath which we are all still blessed to breathe.
As I said earlier, it's worth repeating. Please take care of yourself. We'll be transitioning to a meal, but if you need time to stretch, take a walk, take a breather, ask your neighbor for a hug, please do so. There's water, there's room for you to be just as you are. We're here for and with each of you, just where you are. So take your time in the transition. During and after the meal, the mic will remain open for anybody that would like to share memories or stories about Charlie. So feel free to join in the sharing if you feel ready, when you feel ready. Thank you all for being here and sharing so openly.
Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have sorrow. But if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong. I'll be